Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a very special time of coming together, peace in every step, and may we take many, many steps for peace. This is a special gathering and the beginning of an adventure for all of us, bringing greater consciousness of the peace that we desire in our lives and how to share this in unified ways with each other and with a upbeat and inspirational way to doing so. So thank you very much. At the moment,
David, we lost your audio. Could you unmute, please?
I'm back. And let us begin by you can place your name and your location in the chat if you'd like, and then we will come back and close the chat, and we'll come back for using the chat for a Q&A later in our initiative. My name is David Wick. I'm president of Pathways to Peace, and I'm delighted to introduce Judy Kimmel. Please, Judy.
Hi, thank you, David. And I have to say, it's been such an honor to be on this committee to have this event happen. I think we can all look back at this year, and I know many of us on this call observed the monks that that walked from Texas to Washington, D.C., 2,500 miles in support of, I think, and I believe, and my experience was creating a greater community for peace and for taking a stand for what we all know is a just, right, and worthy gift that we can give the planet. So that's really the origin of what we're doing today. We all got together. We have been in the process with Pathways to Peace, the Peace Alliance. I should introduce myself. I'm Judy Kimmel. I'm the Emeritus Chair of the Peace Alliance. The Peace Alliance is the national organization that advocates, educates, and mobilizes people to move toward peaceful solutions to conflict, and obviously world peace would be wonderful. We have been working in coalition with the Pathways to Peace for some time now. And I believe we were on one call and we all realized, oh my gosh, we were so inspired by these monks and their center and what they did and the stand they took to create peace on the planet. So we were inspired to create this walkathon that we hope will continue the legacy of what they started. And we know the meaning, and I'm sure we're going to hear from our speakers about the meaning of contextualizing what we do, our actions in the world in the context of peace and nonviolence. So we're hoping that, in fact, intending, not just hoping, intending that many, many hundreds of us, many thousands, hopefully, of us throughout the United States and globally will join in and be conscious at times, not every time, not every moment of our lives, but that peace is in every step. And we're very honored to be promoting that message. We wanted to start by acknowledging the team, as I said, that worked very hard to put this together. And you will be seeing many of them on this call. There are two people who are working behind the scenes, and one of them is Laura Brown. We want to acknowledge her, and she has brought a tremendous amount of fundraising expertise to this group. And then also Reverend Rebecca I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it, Susek. And I just met her just now, and she is fabulous, and she's doing our tech today. So we are very grateful for your participation and support. And then I want to continue and underline, and not in a minimal way, the generous support of our organizational sponsors. And we have quite a few, and they're growing. So the list, I'm going to read a list of them, but it's not probably totally complete because participation is coming in. But we do want to honor these people and these organizations, because they are pushing this message out with their networks, and that of course makes a huge difference. So I'm just going to read them for now. Children of the Earth, the Buddhist Film Foundation, Founding Mothers, Unity Earth, We the World, World Peace Campaign Africa, the Rotary E Club of World Peace, the Memphis Symphony, What Better Looks Like in New York City, the River Phoenix Center for Peacebuilding in Florida, and many others. We are very, very grateful for their participation. And now I'm going to turn it back to David, and David's going to tell you a little bit about our speakers and kind of the agenda for this call as we move forward. So David, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Judy.
You're
Well,
welcome.
today, as we mentioned, is really special. And to help us open our thoughts, our hearts to peace building in our world, in our lives, we have two very special people. One is Dr. Younis and also Marianne Williamson. And they're going to express themselves about this particular time and this particular effort that we're all inspired by, and how we're going to move forward and how we can become greater, more conscious with peace and peace building in our lives. I just want to let you know that after they speak, we'll have a short time for Q&A, at which time you'll be able to ask more questions. Then we'll have an explanation of the Walkathon website, followed by a overview of the calls that we have coming up. This is not a one-day thing. This is over a 43, we're starting on May 10th for 43 days. So we really have time to get more deeply into our own journey and a shared journey together. So to begin with, what we often do or usually do with Pathways to Peace and with Peace Alliance is take a moment of coming together, unifying ourselves, calming ourselves, just getting prepared for what is coming. So we're going to have a music. It'll be from Gary Malcolm. It's a Transformance, the Invitation to Unity. This is an important part of just coming together, opening our hearts, opening the purposes for being together. So please, Becky.
You are invited to experience unity. It's time to put aside the differences that divide us. And embrace the beauty of each one of us being different, being unique, being ourselves. In the essence of who we truly are. A beautiful array of human beings across the planet. So many different ways of being human. So let us get to know each other Let's spend time with each other. Let's learn from each other. And let's open our hearts to each other. And let's find the unity that exists right in the middle of the richness of our diversity. We are human. We are unique. We are one.
And we thank you, Gary and Sarah McCrum, for this beautiful transition to coming together into our first speaker. As I had mentioned, we'll close the chat now, but keep track of your questions as we have our two speakers, wonderful speakers, and we'll open that again for a Q&A. So delighted to introduce you to Tezekiah Gabriel, dear friend, colleague, co-dancer. She is the executive director of Pathways to Peace. And Tezekiah, please take it.
Oh my goodness, I am just so honored and delighted to be able to introduce our first guest speaker, someone I admire so very much. And it is Dr. Younis. And he has dedicated a lifetime to global transformation. So before he begins, I'm going to talk a little bit about him and his work. Dr. Alfredo Younis is a distinguished economist, diplomat, and spiritual leader who has spent over 4 decades reshaping how the world approaches development, peace, and human dignity. Born in Chile, he received his PhD from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and spent 29 years at the World Bank and the United Nations. He was the first environmental economist at the World Bank and a pioneer of rights-based development. He's founder of the Zambouling Institute for Human Transformation. Dr. Younis is recognized globally as a pioneer who integrated environmental economics into mainstream development policy when sustainability was still a marginal concern. As the World Bank's first environmental economist, he established frameworks that are now standard practice across international financial institutions. His work transcends economics. He was the first to systematically link international finance with economic, social, and cultural rights, ESCR, fundamentally challenging how development is understood, not just as GDP growth, but as the expansion of human capabilities and freedoms. He is a profound and brilliant individual that has a loving heart. And he has, for more than 2 decades, He has pioneered the integration of Buddhist philosophy and indigenous wisdom into economic policy, founding the Institute and the Latin American Network of Socially Engaged Buddhism. And now, dear Alfredo, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start saying that the traditional paradigms of peace have failed us, and we feel it. More money will not do it. More weapons will not do it. Transactional negotiations of power will not do it. Actually, it takes 1 second to mobilize billions of dollars to go to war, but it takes years really to get $1 to go for peace today. It's incredible to see lately, because of what's happening at the UN, that if one takes the whole budget of the UN since 1945, its totality is only 2/3 of the expenditures on weapons of 1 year in the planet. The UN also has put forth more than 20,000, 40,000 resolutions, and we're still killing each other, we're still violating rights, we're still leaving billions of people behind. So basically, the beginning conclusion of all of us must be that we need a different way, a different approach, a different paradigm for peace. Starting this new paradigm is that peace is not a thing. Peace is a state of being. But when I say a state of being, I am saying two things: inner being as well as interbeing. In the state of inner being, we have to understand, we have to practice, and we have to self-realize peace in ourselves. In essence, we have to become peace, become walking peace. In the interbeing dimension of peace, we are looking for a commitment, in addition to our self-realization, to the creation of peaceful society, peaceful governments, peaceful religions, peaceful spirituality, also peaceful economics, politics, business, agriculture, peaceful education, peaceful health, peaceful relationship. Why not peace days, peaceful nights, peaceful dream, and here a peaceful walk? So peace with everything and everything with peace. But I would like to go one step further. As many people in the computer science said, let's have a double click here. The fundamental state of peace is a state of mutuality, but it's a mutuality with all expressions of life: human being, sentient beings, and nature. So the mantra of peace today, in this era of super interdependent world, is I am because you are because I am. And as we walk for peace, we need to repeat this millions of times. The paradigm of peace today is that world peace is fundamentally dependent on inner peace. Inner peace as the solid foundation for world peace. But not only for human beings, also for sentient beings and nature. So we need peaceful land, peaceful water, peaceful fire, peaceful mountain, rivers, oceans, animals, insects. Today, we need to advance this by asking ourselves, well, how do we get to inner peace? And one essential component of inner peace is inner healing. It's our process of healing. Healing from violence, suffering, ecological destruction, and fear. World peace, inner healing. But we need to go one more click on this, is that inner healing will be the result of the power of silence, the power of meditation, the power of awareness, the power of discernment, and the power of wisdom. Today, my friends, we are not at peace because we are totally fragmented, we are dispersed, we are distracted. We lost the holistic nature, the spinal cord of all manifestations of life as one. Our mind thinks more about separation than unity. The great challenge today is how do we deal with duality? And it's very, very important to understand that peace is born when we attain unity consciousness, which is one step beyond transcendental consciousness. But how do we eliminate duality? I will share as a Buddhist 4 ways to eliminate duality. And maybe this will be part of the meditation stage in the walking. The first one is that unity is a state of being also, as peace is a state of being. Therefore, we need the space for it in ourselves, which means we have to go to higher and higher levels of individual consciousness. This means deeper states of meditation. This means that duality occurs today because we have lower level of individual and collective consciousness. Collective consciousness today is very important. We know, we see it, we feel it. So this pushes us in this realm of the collective to understand how we get to unity. The second path to eliminate duality is that we need more refined mind to understand not only levels of consciousness, but different forms of consciousness. The unity between individual and collective consciousness will come from a third type of consciousness, which we need to develop at this point in time, which is called container consciousness. That one who has the individual and the collective nature of humanity and nature in one. The third path to eliminate this duality requires that we understand in better and more profound ways the interbeing within the law of karma, the law of action, the law of impacts, the law of responsibility. Peace is part of your karmic path. And when you walk for peace, you will begin to feel how past karma, past actions are really determining the possibility of future peace. We have a karmic endowment in the world. Past actions have consequences, present actions have consequences, and we have this incredible endowment of karma in the world we need to resolve. And the last path, to unity from duality is the recognition of what the Buddha said, the misuse of secondary identities. We are really full of secondary identities, and they are really moving more. It's not diversity, it's becoming a way to discriminate, a way to separate ourselves. Today, we have to bring inner peace in a practical and everyday spirituality. And I would say that I will recommend for many people who will be walking to really get in what is called the 4 sublime states. Metta, practice love and kindness. Karuna, practice compassion. Mudita, practice sympathetic joy. And finally, Upekkha, practice equanimity. Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekkha should be the steps of this walkathon. Let me say also that many leaders have spoken about what is happening in this time. And 2 things are really powerful for me to share with you. Technology advances fast, but more than wisdom. We need more wisdom to really channel, technology. And also, we are now learning how to connect devices, technological devices, but we need to develop how to connect with other souls. Daddy Yankee, a great spiritual leader of the Brahma Kumaris, said, if you have peace in your mind, peace in your words, peace in your action, then peace will naturally spread. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. This means reconciliation. This means justice. So when we walk for peace, we need to work for the poor, for the disabled, for the voiceless, for future generation, and for the earth itself. Let's make today 3 silent commitments to create peace in our thoughts, to create peace in our relationship, and to create peace as a way to service the world. But no peace will come into humanity if we are at war with nature. We cannot keep having rivers that are poisoned, forests that are destroyed, oceans that are polluted, and so much in this era of ecological disaster. Let us walk with compassion. Compassion not only to self-realize compassion in ourselves, but commit ourselves simultaneously to the creation of compassionate society. Commit yourself in this walk to heal the world in every action, in every step. The Buddha, when he was enlightened, did 1 week of different types of meditation, 7 types of meditation, just after enlightenment. And one of them was walking meditation, in which his mind and his whole body and spirit created a lotus flower under his feet on every step. The moment is now. The moment to heal the world is now. The moment for peace is now. Om Shanti. I bow to all of you. Thank you very, very much.
Mm. And we bow to you, dear Alfredo. Thank you for your wisdom and really your guidance that we will take with us as we walk. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now it's my honor and my pleasure to turn the floor over to my colleague, Terry. Terry, I give the floor to you.
Thank you, Tess. We are so excited to have Marianne Williamson joining us tonight, as she truly is the main reason the Peace Alliance even exists. It is my honor and privilege to introduce her to all of you who may not be familiar. Marianne is a best-selling author, political activist, spiritual thought leader, as well as a former candidate for president of the United States. For over 4 decades, she has been a leader in spiritually progressive circles. She is also the author of 16 books, 4 of which have been #1 New York Times bestsellers, including Healing the Soul of America and Politics of Love, a handbook for a new American revolution, an urgent call to spiritual activism for a divided nation. I highly encourage all of you to check out and subscribe to her excellent Substack, where she delves powerfully into so many important issues that we face today. MarianneWilliamson.substack.com. And for our sake tonight, we honor her place as a founder of the Peace Alliance. And as I said, this organization and our work over the years would not exist without her. So we are all more than grateful. And with that, I think we can go ahead and dive into our conversation. Marianne?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Terry. And it's an honor to be here with some old friends such as you and Matthew Albrecht and Jimmy Kimmel, and not Jimmy Kimmel, Judy Kimmel. Everybody's got Jimmy Kimmel on the mind today. We like him too, actually. But you, of course, Judy Kimmel, and all of you, many of us have been at this work for a very long time. And I think that we are living in a very, very significant moment. I think that things have gotten so bad that people are open to listening. I think that when the monks were walking, it was pretty extraordinary, the effect that they were having on people all over the country. We all saw pictures of policemen walking with them and so forth. I felt like the country was touched, and you could really feel that there was a spiritual influence that they transmitted. And I am really glad that the Peace Alliance and the other organizations that are involved here is going to move this forward, because I agree with you, Judy, and the things that you were saying. You know, in A Course in Miracles, it says salvation begins when we consider the possibility that there might be another way. And all that salvation is the only thing to be safe from is our own crazy thinking. We're living at a moment where the indomitability of American military power is at last being challenged, at least in the minds of people all over the world. What is happening in Iran, the myth that American military power, brute force in its most crass, militaristic way, could just go make happen whatever we wanted to make happen. And the whole world is saying, oh, really? Meanwhile, as Alfredo was saying, Donald Trump says that his dream military is $1.5 trillion a year, a year. And because so much of American military power has been used up already in Iran, now there will be even more money made by the military-industrial complex to replenish what has been used up, repair what has been broken, and of course, move forward. The point of this, though, is I think it feels to me anyway, like for the first time in a way in my lifetime, there seems to be a critical mass of people who recognize this is insane. That's not to say that people are necessarily ready to take the next step. That's our job, to show that next step. But I do believe that we're living at a time where things have burst apart at the seams. And I think this is a very pregnant, although terrifying moment. You know, one of the ideas that I love in the Course in Miracles is the word disillusionment. On one hand, this is a moment when people are very disillusioned. But the Course in Miracles makes the point it was an illusion to begin with. So to be disillusioned is not a bad thing. It's ultimately a good thing. The issue is what will we replace it with? And what we will replace it with is the bedrock reality that Dr. Alfredo was already talking about. That peace is a thing. You know, it's that whole issue of how sickness is not the absence, excuse me, health is not the absence of sickness. Sickness is the absence of health. And peace is not the absence of conflict. Conflict is the absence of peace. And much as Alfredo was talking about with the Buddhism, it is the way of nature to be at peace. You know, Gandhi said the problem with the world is that humanity is not in its right mind. Now, also, Alfredo was mentioning peace building. One of the things that I saw when I was politically active as a candidate was that a lot of people in America, unlike in other countries, I think this is Americans are really behind a lot of other countries in the conversation, a lot of other advanced democracies. I think a lot of Americans have not realized that peace building is a thing. There are 4 factors which statistically we know if these 4 factors are present, then you will have a higher incidence of peace and a lower incidence of conflict. Number 1, greater economic opportunities for women. Number 2, greater educational opportunities for children. Number 3, an amelioration of violence against women. And number 4, a diminishment of unnecessary human despair. And these factors are so important because when you're walking, when you're part of this walkathon and you have conversations with people, people don't know that. There are 4 factors. Greater economic opportunities for women, greater educational opportunities for children, diminishment of violence against women, and amelioration of unnecessary human despair. The statistics exist. And yet also, as Alfredo was saying, look at the money we spend on war versus the resources we spend on peace building. And no country is more egregious in its gap, in the obscenity of our gap between what we will spend on peace versus war than the United States. And this is much worse than it's ever been, because now with basically the eradication of USAID, you know, USAID, the whole point of USAID was it got rid of unnecessary human despair. Meanwhile, once again, we will be spending more. That's the bad news. But the good news about the bad news is that I think more than probably ever in certainly our memory, what I'm finding, and I bet you're finding too, and you will find it as you're part of this process, people listen. There is a sense that something has gone too far. People are seeing what's happening not only in Iran, not only with Israel and Palestine. We are seeing where brute force and constant more, let's have more application of brute force. And where is this getting us? I know for those of us who are Americans, it's not like we won in Afghanistan. 20 years and the Taliban are back. In Iraq, we killed 1 million Iraqis. It's not like this is working. And so our job is to be there to, I think, comfort people really with the realization that there are things we can do to proactively cultivate peace. Just like you don't just fight sickness. The old model of allopathic medicine was you don't take care of your health, you don't take care of your nutrition, you don't take care of your lifestyle, you just hope you don't get sick. And then if you get sick, you try to eradicate or suppress the symptoms. And now we realize you have to proactively cultivate health. Well, we have to proactively cultivate the conditions of peace, just like you proactively cultivate the presence of health. Every time you feed a child, you're cultivating peace. Every time you give more economic opportunities to a woman, you are cultivating peace. You know, I remember when I was in Africa years ago, and I remember I was in Kenya, and I remember visiting these villages, and I remember how proud and excited these people were to show us their wells. And I think it took me time to really understand why they were so excited about those wells. Coming as an American in modern America, I thought, well, that's nice. Yeah, well, I mean, I was just so superficial in my understanding what it meant. And then to hear about the programs, American and other countries, which had provided these wells. I remember visiting a slum in Kenya called Kibera. It's one of the worst slums in the world. You read about it if you haven't. Some of you might have even been there. And I remember I walked into a little room where a family, a mother and a father and their children lived in this room. A lot of people died of diarrhea. They died of cholera because, a place to go to the bathroom was so spread out. It's a place where at the end of our visit there, well, first of all, I want to tell you about this woman in this room, and then I want to tell you about something that a Canadian diplomat said to me. This woman, I walked into this room, this African woman in Kibera. You know what she said to us when we entered this little room? She said, "Welcome to my home." And she said it with such grace. "Welcome to my home." And then I remember seeing this river of sewage, and I saw these young boys. They looked around maybe 13 or so. And I remember asking myself, I wonder when they realize where they are. If you've never visited a slum, as I left Kibera, there was a Canadian diplomat who was with our group, and I remember he said to me, now we get to go to a hotel. We get to go take a shower. We get to go lie on a bed, on a mattress. And the reason I mention this is because Kibera is not necessary on this earth. I remember when I was in college when Buckminster Fuller was talking about how we have the resources on this planet for everyone to be fed. We have the resources on this planet for everyone to be housed. We have the resources on this planet. This billion people on the planet living on less than $1 a day is absolutely unnecessary. And it's the job of everyone who participates in this walkathon to tell that story, to tell that story of human possibility. And I think something is very, very important, because even 10 years ago, and Matthew knows this, Judy knows this, all of you, we've all been at this for so many years. And we're so ignored, and we're so mocked, and we're so trivialized, and we're so minimized. Oh my God, when I ran for president, Department of Peace. But you know what? When I worked in the AIDS crisis, people who were doing the spiritual work with AIDS patients were so looked down on by doctors at first. And I saw the arrogance fall away from their eyes. And they went from, oh, well, it's nice if you make people feel better, to, what have you got? You have any ideas? And I think the traditional political structures of the world are beginning to look that way at you and me. Peace, love, democracy itself has been checkmated, and the system knows it. And they don't know. They have played their cards. And trust me when I tell you, they're scared. And the people on this call and the organizations that are represented on this call have the answers. And I look at you, Ruth Sharon, you've been doing this for so many years. There are people on this call who've been doing this for decades. And you know what? Your time has come. Have these stories. Be ready. And everybody that you get to walk with you, be of comfort to people. This is not about being angry at the old system at this point, because people are too scared for that anyway. But it is telling the stories. Telling the story about what makes peace building. Telling the stories about what's possible. Telling the story about how we could have a Department of Peace. There's a book by Ronan Farrow called The War on Peace, talking about how in America over the last 50 years, how the State Department, its capacity and its resources for building peace were so diminished, while the military was so much increased. And now it's not even just the military industrial complex. Now it's a military industrial technological complex. But the effects of love are maximal, and there's no order of difficulty in miracles. And remember the first principle of nonviolence, which is that we have to be it. Gandhi said that the end is inherent in the means. The reason he said we must be the change is because otherwise the change won't happen. So I think everybody on this call has been anointed. It's a spiritual role. And I know, like I said, I'm honored to know there are those of you on this call that I know, some of you that I know that I didn't even know that I knew. But I really believe that there's a listening now. There's an openness. And that's when it all starts. Consider the possibility there might be another way. And that's what this walkathon is about. And all the people that you'll meet, just send your love before you. Just before you go, before whatever your activity is, send the love before you. Bow in your heart, have a namaste consciousness. You never know what little conversation you might have with somebody that becomes a seed. And those seeds are being planted. And the truth of the matter is, it's the only survivable option at this point for the human race. When people would say to me, oh, you're so naive to say love and compassion could be the organizing principle of human civilization. And I would say to them, as I say to them now, what's really naive is to think that it's reasonable that the human race will survive another 100 years if we don't at least try. You're the provocateurs. The provocateur is the first phase of change. It's people who are considered outrageous radicals by the status quo of their time. They start the conversation. We get mocked, we get minimized, whatever. That's okay. It opens the space for the activists, and the politicians take it up ultimately, and they drive it home. We're living at a time now where all three phases are compressed. And It's our turn now. So when I look at all of you, I look at you, Judy, and I look at you, Ruth, and I look at you, Matthew, and I look at you, Terry, and I look at all of you who have been at this for a long time. Rehearsal, it was a long rehearsal, but I honestly believe the curtain is up. And each of us with this walkathon, you will have opportunities to say things, and there will be a listening that you might not have ever thought you might encounter. I'll just finish with one story. A friend of mine, a major left-wing influencer, always nice to me, but I could tell, thought my little spiritual thing was a little like naive. When a lot of this stuff happened, that's happened over the last year with the president and so forth, she and her husband were talking about how bad it is. And there was silence. And then I said, well, I believe in miracles. And she said something that I never thought I would hear from her. She said, well, we need one. When a mind like that breaks and opens to know that all our cards have been played, and the system turns to people like you and me and says, what do you got? We got plenty. Take it to the streets. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's lovely being with you.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Always a joy.
Thank you.
So I think we may have some questions for people for Dr. Younis and also for Marianne. I don't know who's fielding those. Is it Amina fielding those or Becky?
We have opened the chat now, and people are invited to place the questions into the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and really appreciate you all sharing your thoughts and questions for our wonderful speakers tonight, which we had the honor of listening to and interacting with and learning from. And so I'm going to look for your questions, and please indicate who your question is for, which wonderful speaker your question is for, and I will go ahead and share it.
The first one I'm seeing is, could the four aspects for peace be
Yes.
placed in the chat, please? And so,
Yes.
Marianne, if you want to speak them again, I'll
Yeah,
type them in.
Did somebody say something to me, Terry? I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
The
The question is the four aspects
okay,
for
that's right.
peace.
Okay, I was just
If you
speaking
could
of them.
say them again, I'll type them in the
Yeah,
chat.
okay, good. Okay, number one, greater economic opportunities for women. Number two, greater educational opportunities for children. Number three, a reduction in violence against women. And number four, an amelioration of unnecessary human despair. Statistically, whether you're talking about a town in a corner of the United States, or you're talking about a corner of sub-Saharan Africa, any situation where there are those four factors, greater economic opportunities for women, greater educational opportunities for children, a reduction of violence against women, and an amelioration of unnecessary human despair, statistically, you have greater opportunity, greater incidence of peace, and a reduction in violence. That's why the USAID and all these peace-building efforts are so horrific. And also, I also want to say, there's a quote from Martin Luther King where he said there's negative peace and positive peace. Negative peace, he said, is where there's no outright violence, but there's an underlying tension and anxiety. Positive peace, he said, can only be based on brotherhood and justice. So anytime we proactively cultivate justice, we are building peace. anytime we proactively cultivate brotherhood. And that's like when Dr. Alfredo said, it's got to come from us personally. There's a limit to what institutions can do or will do. And also, I think it's important for us to remember there's a lot of talk about where social change comes from. I think those of us in this realm get too concerned about the majority. The majority didn't wake up and say, let's free the slaves. The majority didn't wake up and say, let's give women the right to vote. The majority didn't wake up one day and say, let's pass civil rights legislation. And that's true of other countries as well. This is not just American. What we need is a critical mass. And that's why I think that we're living in such a pregnant moment, because I think we have a critical mass of at least people who are willing to listen. And that's why it's so important that our hearts be open. Martin Luther King said, you have very little morally persuasive power with people who can feel your underlying contempt. That's why I get very concerned about people who are treating Trump voters like, you did this, because I think a lot of people are rethinking and processing right now. We have to practice peace ourselves, no shaming people. We have to be very magnanimous. That's why Gandhi said self-purification precedes political action. It wasn't just that the monks walked, it's who they were as they walked.
Mm. Mm.
Terry, do we have time for another question, or do we want to go to the next
Yeah,
segment?
I think one more. Yeah,
Okay.
one more.
All right. So this question is for Dr. Alfredo, and it comes from Laura. Can you please speak to the positive impact of mass meditation, please?
Mass meditation.
Yes, mass meditation.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that we live today in a collective society. For the first time in human history, we live in a planetary society. This is a fact. This is not a makeup. You know, what happens in one corner of the world, it happens everywhere. But what we hear about spirituality, you know, is very individual based, you know, and there is a reason. The logic is that if you don't change, you don't have the perception of peace. You don't know what peace is all about. If we don't know what peace is all about, it's very difficult to know what we're negotiating, what program are we given, be it for men or women. You know, we lose the quality of development. You know, we use the quality of money. You lose the quality of economics and politics. So there is this element there, but there is this collective side, you know, of spirituality. And my experience is the first time I meditated in a collective way was with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, you know, the famous Maharishi effect. We did it in Washington, and we quantified, 5 universities quantify the impact of collective meditation. But there is not only collective meditation, there is collective service. You know, we need to serve. It's very difficult when you are in the economic world or the business world to talk about this in this manner. But the reality is that we have to find what I call the 200% society, a society that is materially rich and spiritually rich at the same time. We cannot advance technology without wisdom. Think about for a moment on artificial intelligence. If we don't have a collective way to understand how the world will look like and how our wisdom, not only our knowledge, our wisdom will really begin to define how we collectively, in, as you say, mass spirituality needs to come up. And I would say that there is one principle, and that's all I want to say. There is one principle that is very important. We can talk about the economics of women, the future of women, the future of children, the future of the voiceless. There are many, many clusters in which we can focus ourselves and say, okay, we want more material prosperity for them. The issue of human rights, also a collective, a massive way of look at humanity. None of this will happen without a global consensus on social ethics. If social ethics is not there, in a sense, we get nowhere. I have been in development, for many, many, many years. Marianne talked about Africa, beautiful example. I worked in Africa for 10 years, and I was in the worst shanty towns that I ever seen in my life. They are not looking for money. They are looking for dignity. I remember when there was a project where they were given water. The great thing was water, but also was that they had a bill, that their name was there, that they had identity for the first time. So we need to have collective spirituality with instrument, like this walkathon is a collective instrument. It's a spiritually collective instrument to move. But there is also meditation collective. There is also education. This is such an important question. And I say to end that we have to put the emphasis on collective spirituality. That's why I created this Latin American, organization for the social teachings of the Buddha, not the individual, but also the social teachings. So the precondition for this to happen is not only meditation, it's meditation plus. Even if we do massively, it's meditation plus. And this plus is this consensus on the social ethics that we are going to collectively accept to move forward.
I think what
Thank you so much, Dr. Younis. Someone shared something?
Yeah. Can you hear me? I don't know if.
Yeah.
Of course, yes, Marianne, go ahead. Yes, we
I
can
think
hear
what
you.
Alfredo was just saying was really spoke to something I felt very strongly about in terms of the higher consciousness and personal growth and spirituality movement in the United States over the last few decades has been so focused on the individual. I've said to people so many times, as long as you're out there visualizing the apartment you want, and visualizing the money you want, and visualizing the work you want, how about visualizing a planet where war is just a memory? How about visualizing a planet where everyone is fed, where there is no hunger? Dalai Lama had said, in order to save the planet, save the world, he said, we must have a plan, but no plan will work unless we meditate. Another thing, when Alfredo was talking about meditation and Maharishi effect, I'm sure you know this already, sir, that before the Iraq War, the people in Fairfield, Iowa, the whole Maharishi movement was, they were putting advanced meditators in the Persian Gulf there. Roosevelt, right before he died, actually said in a speech that he wrote but then did not live to deliver, he said, we need to do more than end war. We need to end the beginnings of all wars. And I just think that point about collective spirituality, and I know in countries like ours, it's difficult to, you have to be real careful with your languaging because people don't want to feel that they have to align with a particular form of meditation or prayer, but just introducing this idea of the collective, because it's the collective heartbeat that we're talking about. It's like what people in heart math talk about, that when we pray together, when we meditate together, that we create a field of possibility when two or more are gathered. So I just think that he's really right to make that conversation front and center.
I'd like to
Thank
say
you very much.
something, please. Today, we live in the collective. There is no way to escape the collective. My profession as an environmental economist is to deal with the collective public goods, environment, water, climate, and so on. I was also a candidate to the presidency of Chile, running on a collective platform. People say, no, this is so interesting, but it's not the time. And I think Marianne is right. Now is the time. And I hope we are going to implement it. and not just make, some one-shot deal and then it disappears, after so many days in this walkathon, and then each of us go everywhere. We are today in a world that is managed by individual materialism, and spirituality is being grabbed by individual materialism. We need to take it away. So,
I'm sorry.
sorry?
The problem we have here in the United States is that the forces that represent the extreme of what you're saying, the individual materialist, have convinced millions of Americans to be very afraid of the word collectivism. They go directly from that to, oh, they're communists. So we have to be so careful with our language.
I said collective, not collectivism.
I know, but they take that.
Yeah, but it's up to us to have a communication strategy that suits the United States. But wherever I go,
From me to we. People can hear from me to we.
Yeah.
People can hear that.
Yeah.
And that we will all survive or none of us will survive.
Correct. But the collective is not the addition of individuals. This is another fallacy. The collective today has its own dynamics, has its own intelligence, has its own energy, its own behavior. And I think it's important for us to think about this, we spirituality, collective spirituality. I am not afraid of that because I come probably from a different culture. But we have to be careful in not using language that in the end, it sort of disappears because it doesn't have the strength that really will make transformation possible at the collective level.
That's a big conversation because on one hand, I totally agree with you. I agree with you about the unfoldment, the organic unfoldment of groups and systems rather than just the individual. You're absolutely correct. And I'm just saying many of us are Americans. And like I said, when you're on this walkathon, you want to be able to really be heard. And each of us just has to ask within what the language is, like you said, a communication strategy. I've just noticed what they've done with that word and how quick, I mean, the obsessive, extreme, absurd, and ridiculous fear of the word socialism, jumping to the word communism is just, it's a real challenge that we all have in front of us. That's all.
Yeah.
Not that I'm disagreeing with you at all. I'm just talking about the communication here in the United States.
Yeah.
Well, this is a
Messaging and
wonderful.
language is very important.
Yes, and it is a global walkathon, and so every region will have its own limitation and restrictions, in terms of how the society operates and the language we use. And so yeah, we'll adapt to that. But thank you so much for both of our speakers, Dr. Alfredo Sfer-Younis and also Marianne Williamson, for being
Thank
with
you,
us and for
everybody.
sharing your incredible wisdom with us. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful whatever.
Thank you very much. And with that, I know we have a very limited time, but I'll pass it on to my colleague Terry, who can quickly maybe walk us through.
Yeah,
I know
I think
it'll
I
be
put
fast,
everything
but-
in I put everything in the chat that people need to know. I put
Perfect.
the link in the chat. I think we can just go to
Yes.
David and Judy to lead us into our next call next week.
Well, just thank you very, very much, Marianne and Alfredo. Just perfect foundation in getting us in the mindset about moving forward and moving into this walkathon. And Judy, I think the one couple of the keys that stand out for me was one was when Alfredo was talking about the inner peace, and we all have that. We are that, but we don't know that. We are. I think what comes to mind is also Teilhard de Chardin, where it says you are spiritual beings in a human experience.
Yeah.
We are that, but we're discovering the consciousness. We're discovering who this is, and the walkathon is an opportunity to intentionally take action. You have to get up, get your shoes on, and intentionally do this. What stood out for you?
Oh, the whole thing. I wanted it to go on for another 3 hours. It was so interesting and rich and full of interesting comments and things to ponder. But perhaps that's it. That's every step, and we get to ponder in every step we take. And I think if we you know, it's not always omnipresent in my mind when I'm in the kitchen making dinner. But if I can kind of incorporate some portion more than I currently do, I feel I'm a success story. And I think that can be true for everybody that wants to join this coalition and this movement to really lengthen, extend what was so beautifully started by our monks from Texas. And I encourage everybody to ponder what we're doing, and wanted to also let you know that during this, essentially the walkathon will be going from Mother's Day to Father's Day. So it's about 6 weeks that you have to create your own personal walkathon and your own personal commitment to peace in every step. And it can be done in so many different ways. There's not a way to do it. And but we just want everyone to be engaged and understand the context and be part of our coalition to move this dialogue forward. We're having a series in that 6-week period. We're having a series of Zoom calls. You will be getting invitations to that via email and Facebook and social media and things. Our next one is just a week away on May 4th, which is Monday, May 4th. It's another kind of pre-launch before Mother's Day. And we are very fortunate to have Tano Maeda, who is an award-winning director, and he was the gentleman that did the documentary film Peace in Every Step, that focused on the life of Thich Nhat Hanh. And he will be our guest next in our next call, and he will be showing you an excerpt of that documentary film. We're very excited. And then in that call, we will invite Terry to step up and give you more details about how to sign up. But she did leave that information, I believe, in the chat. So you can also look there. And there are all, on most of our communications, there are links so that you can access our individual website, which is actually hosted by Pathways to Peace, and we're very grateful for that. So in closing, I don't even know how to end except to say that I feel very privileged to have been on this call and to be with each one of you all over. And there are people I know from all over the world, not just the United States. So I want us to let that in maybe, and to just experience the fact that there is peace on the planet, and we just have to magnify it.
And I would say
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Marianne. In terms of peace building is a thing.
Mhm.
We're doing that now by being together.
Yeah.
This is part of that. This is an energetic that is vibrating out, but it's our action.
Yeah.
And so every step we take is in peace building.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here also. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. Thank everybody. Very honored to have you here, all of you, each one of you, wherever you are.
And we're
See you
having
next week.
some amazing music for people to depart on, again, from our beloved Gary Malcolm. And so you can hang out and listen to the music if you feel that, or feel free to leave. And we love you and leave in peace. Thank you.
May peace prevail on earth and in all of your hearts.
Night. Thank you.
Good night.